met Eddie Miller? Waar is sy? En vir wat karring hierdie aaklige, verdomde polisiepoepie heeldag op haar terminaal? Word ons nou almal ondersoek?
Arsenal, Thursday, 8:30 on 3.
Compared to most of the Karoo, New Bethesda is special. This is not only because of the Owl House, the sculpture garden created by the outsider artists Helen Martins and Koos Malgas. New Bethesda is special because it has water. And that means fracking is making the people of New Bethesda very worried. Evelyn Olifant runs a restaurant and soup kitchen in New Bethesda.
Ons keer dit nie goed nie. Ons het al met die gemeenskap gepraat van New Bethesda. Ons gaan verloor met hierdie gekrap en gekrap. En dis ons werk die. Meeste van ons het gastehuise en restaurants. En hier is werk wat nou gegee is daar. Daai werk daar, daai dam, wat seker 'n jaar oor 'n jaar op 'n half wat en is grawe werk wat hulle noem Swedish pype van inleg. Is baie werk wat nou wat government nou gegee het.
Still, the potential for job creation from fracking undermines the opposition. Recently, a group of civic organizations in nearby Graaff-Reinet came out in support of fracking. But Shell isn't promising jobs immediately.
So in the short term, when we're drilling these 24 wells, there will be jobs, but they'll be of limited transient nature. You know, we can't commit to anything beyond the 3 years. Nonetheless, there'll be jobs in construction, the drilling, transport, warehousing, catering and other support services, that types of things. However, if you go forward and you look at similar developments of shale gas, say in the US, there's been a lot of academic studies on the benefits of those developments on the communities, and one I like to talk about was done by Penn State University, where they looked at the Marcellus shale development just in Pennsylvania itself. And in 2008, in 1 year alone, the first year of development, they calculated it delivered 29,000 jobs to Pennsylvania. The second year, 44,000 jobs. And they're projecting by 2020, 174,000 jobs.
Typically, these unconventional gas operations at the development phase have a tendency to go on for 15 to 30 years. 3 decades is a long time. And by that time, we're hoping that would have sufficiently stimulated the economy in the area like the Karoo, would have created meaningful, sustainable jobs for the people of the Karoo, would have bought trucks, technology, machinery from the people of the Karoo, would have used the expertise and the know-how from the people of the Karoo in terms of hydrologists, geologists, but people who understand the surface and indeed the subsurface of this pristine, magnificent part of South Africa's heritage.
Jonathan Deal is the leader of the Treasure the Karoo Action Group, the leading anti-fracking lobby. He doesn't believe Shell's promises.
There have been groups all over the country that have been expectant of employment from the oil companies. One of the things that's concerned me and disturbed me very much is that the oil companies or the applicants have not corrected the misapprehensions. By Shell's own figures, for instance, minimum of 4 years during the exploration phase, no local jobs whatsoever. And in adverts that show up at fuel stations around the country, they said they're approaching it so carefully that it may take up to 9 years to get to full-scale gas production. Even at that stage, if one looks at reports from the United States where journalists have been taken over there by Shell, one of the journalists who returned mentioned in her article in the national media that on an area of 400 wells operated by Shell, it was supervised by only 66 Shell employees. So for us, this is hardly constitutes the thousands of jobs that were promised by Shell.
The issue isn't only jobs in the area, but also the energy needs of the whole country. South Africans remember the load shedding of 2008 only too well.
We know that South Africa needs energy we know that it is concerned about the security of supply. We know that electricity generation is the biggest economic stimulant for this economy, and that our and reserve margin has been almost decimated. That's why all of us were witnesses on the 1st of January 2008 when Eskom embarked on these rolling blackouts. And indeed, we have created a national oil company that uses this technology, gas to liquid, called Petro SA. And we are also aware that the gas that they were sitting on, Inmos gas, is rapidly getting depleted. So we'll have to find new sources of energy.
But critics say there's no reason these new sources of energy should come from shale gas.
The rest of the world, and this includes countries with much bigger coal reserves than we have, for example, the United States, China, India. These are countries not typically associated with renewables and wind energy. In 2008, for the first time, more wind energy, new wind energy, was built in the world than more new other electricity generating capacity, and that's excluding large hydro. Large hydro are big dams, so we're talking mainly wind and a bit of solar.
In the Karoo, we found an example of just this kind of development, a house completely disconnected from Eskom and powered by solar and wind energy.
They're dependent on solar and wind energy. Behind you is a tower where they're putting up their wind. So there's no Eskom at all. In fact, we did, because it gets quite expensive, and it's still expensive in our country, we did investigate getting Eskom power cables here, and it ended up being a lot more actually just to get the cables here than the actual system that we have at the moment. The system is about $500,000 that we're putting up here, but it is a big house. You're looking more at a guest house with 6 bathrooms, 6 bedrooms, a lot of luxuries. You don't need such a big system. So I think if one was to investigate it properly, I'm sure that one can make it affordable to the general public.
While this system isn't cheap, it will end up paying for itself in savings.
Once it's up and running, I would say it's pretty much cost-free.
When the Department of Mineral Resources announced the moratorium on all fracking applications, they sounded pretty optimistic about gas.
What is happening at the moment is that the department is currently busy doing a feasibility study of shale gas exploration in South Africa. It's a new phenomenon. South Africa is joining the United States and other developed countries, Mexico and others, in shale gas exploration activity.
Critics complain that very little about the department's investigation has come out.
The minister was going to constitute a multidisciplinary task team, which we expected would include a lot of stakeholders in South Africa, especially ministries like Environment and Water Affairs, Agriculture, Rural Development, and so on, even nature conservation. And we are very disturbed that we're now at the end of June, in fact early July, and at the end of May, the minister in her budget speech indicated that she was going to be reporting back to Cabinet at the end of July, which means that this task team already must be hard at work. And the details of the team are still an absolute mystery to us.
However, the department denies keeping secrets. When Specialist Simon contacted them directly, they gave us a list of all of the bodies involved in the study. Meanwhile, Shell feels they have all the time in the world.
Exploration and production is a long-term game. It's like running a marathon. This is not a sprint. In the 800,000 wells that have been successfully drilled by Shell in the US of A alone, and 1 million wells that have been drilled by the industry. This takes anything from 15 to 30 years. So we're not in a hurry of a day here or a day there.
Unless that type of report is preceded by an absolutely thorough investigation, which cannot be accomplished in less than a number of years, our only option and our committed course of action is to oppose that immediately with any means, any legal means at our disposal.
And what would that include?
We would basically have to take it to court. We would have to ask for an internal appeal process against the minister's decision, and we would probably look at a review of that decision. And that would involve going to High Court.
And as the battle lines are drawn in preparation for the department's report at the end of July, the Karoo simply waits.
Well, with the whole country waiting for the outcome of the study that will determine the future of the Karoo, one thing's for certain, this is only the beginning of what is a real fight indeed. Let's move on now to comments on last week's episode about the gangs of the Cape Flats. We've had a huge response. I'll pick out 3 of them. Adrian van der Werfen on Facebook saying, and he enjoyed the words of an ex-gangster, saying, gangsters think that having a number is cool, but being a family man is the coolest thing in the world. While Eugene Bayes tweeted saying, when kids will stop looking at gangsters as legends, then gang-related violence can stop. And the last one, MJ Brickwa wrote, 10 years ago, drugs wasn't so easy to get. Now, it's on every corner. Rather ominous there. Well, join us again next week with Special Assignment as we point out the issues that matter.
Daniel Leroux has sold the mining rights.
Mining rights?
I now own the mining rights to Ultra Deep.
You must be removed. Removed, John, like as in fired.
Have you been flying this plane? Yeah, what's going on?
But without the rights, this whole project is...
This whole project is in danger of collapse.
Since you left, I did not remove that criminal record of that report.
Right! Isidingo, Monday to Friday at 6:30 on 3.
The new Andrea Core. Lifelines. Out now.